Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Sanjeev, for taking out time and speaking to us at the World Dream Day. We are consolidating our family office relationships, both from the royal family at Japan and the private office for Sheikh Kasimi, to bring in potential partnerships. We're potentially having a conversation both on the future of building businesses. I thought having both of you who spent years in the making impact and making growth stories and making an impact across. You've worked for organizations that have been in transition and made impact when people did not think that they are going to make an impact, with companies like Apple and companies like Microsoft and Dell and Motorola at leadership levels, not only across Asia, but also across the world, sitting on boards of few. The premise of really looking at what the future has been in some of those areas which did not work, and in some of those areas that just transcended people's beliefs of what those organizations really scaled for. Sanjeev obviously has led organizations really from the front, not only leading market shares of creating new categories, but also being someone who is front-ended what the customer really believes in and learning from the bottom of the pyramid, always cross-functioned, also being a mentor to me personally in a lot of capacity. Today leads an interesting and an entirely new business in the freight business of the airline space in Spice Express, leading it from scratch and so on and so forth. Love to have your views around what the aspect in your minds has been often in what the future of building business really means. So, Sanjeev, love to hear your perspective of when you choose an organization, how do you perceive what the future for that organization is, and how does it really make an impact on people's lives? So, 2 cents on that.
Okay, I'll go first. I think Pranav, just to reminisce a little, I just celebrated my 60th birthday, and now I've now worked for 36 years across different categories, across actually decades. And I think, as you build future ready businesses, or as you look back, I think 4 or 5 things which have really been pretty constant in how you build businesses, how you scale up businesses, how you build good teams is, I think first is a very strong and clear shared strategy, okay, which the leadership gives to down the line. And I've seen organizations flounder when there is no strategy and people are roaming like it. People are still busy, but they're roaming around like headless chickens. I think the second is consistency of execution. We can't do strategy every day, in my view. So I have this cliche which says, vision without execution is merely a hallucination. And I've seen again a lot of organizations not able to scale. Great strategy, great vision, but nobody focused on the nuts and bolts. So I think that's very critical, which is focusing on execution. Third is, of course, something which I've discussed with you over long periods, which is team. You attract the right talent and you get it working together without politics, without any egos, without. That's one of the most difficult things to do in an organization. So you get ordinary people to produce extraordinary results. You can get extraordinary people and they'll produce below ordinary results, because in several cases. So I think that's very critical as you focus on building a future scale up. I think recently now, of course, is the ability to be very, very flexible and to be, mindful of changed environment. You don't know where your next competition is coming from. It will not come from your traditional competitors. It will come from somewhere you didn't even expect. And you have to be nimble footed. You have to be flexible. That's, the cycles are
Yeah,
becoming shorter.
yeah.
So I think, and last, of course, is very clear focus on costs. I mean, great vision, great strategy, but you let costs run away with you, and you are then left halfway.
Yeah.
And I think the last one is very much getting technology to work with you. Don't let technology overpower you, but get technology to deliver to your
Work.
customer.
Yeah. Ian, I wanted to
Those are
pick
the
that.
constants. Yeah. And
So Ian, I wanted to pick that up for you. What Sanjeev said about people said about technology and alignment of what the opportunity really is. I know you spent years being very closely involved with the ups and downs of Apple and ups and downs of Motorola. And some companies survived, and some companies just didn't survive, and some companies became the epitome of market or global leadership. What has been central to building a consistent future of making sure that the organization succeeds? Because as we look at it, the traditional way of looking at it is potential cash flow or the ability to make sure that businesses are going in front, obviously with a set of people who bring out the best for the transaction. What has been your perspective in the mix of organizations that you worked for, where you said that, this is something that you strongly believe in? Ian.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very important to get everything the previous speaker was just talking about in terms of obviously a vision, strategy. You've got to execute, manage cash flow, and get a great team. They're kind of in the world that I come from. Thinking about Apple, Motorola, or my current AI company, you have to get all of those right. But the real key part of this, from my perspective, running an AI company now that's kind of growing pretty fast, is the tech has to be world class, right? And it has to work. And it's hard. I mean, building AI has taken, in Scream's taken eight years, right? To build, test, iterate. And I think if you think about the tech world, we're always in uncertain times. There's no period where there's stability. So in the tech world, you're making decisions based on uncertain macro environments. Obviously, we've got COVID we can think about. You've got Google, you've got Facebook, so you've got all the things developing at speed. So you have to take a very lean approach to the tech development. And if you think about, at Cambridge University, they're doing some of the world's leading thinking on this. And it's all about lean strategy. It's making tech, testing it, breaking it, killing it, moving on, fast iterations, fast experiments, learn a lot from the failures, move on quickly, and don't be afraid to acquire and bolt.
Yeah.
It is interesting in my days in Apple and Cupertino in '99, before Tim Cook arrived. He came in about 2001, I believe, early 2001. At Apple, we had no issue about buying companies at all. And you think about, before Adobe, there was another company called Macromedia. Adobe was an incredible acquirer of companies. They acquired Macromedia. So we think about most tech companies, they have done monster acquisitions to get to where they are. So you really have to have a lean strategy, and you have to do both to keep the growth, which is needed for tech companies. And it's not about profits, as you know. At some point, organic growth is not enough.
Yeah,
I'm bolt on.
In fact, that is something that we, as the integrator between the Japanese family offices and the Middle East family offices, are consistently looking at. The fundamental play was the clear realization that, when I am giving a contract worth 500 million to the top big 5 technology companies, they go ahead and acquire smaller companies and get the problem delivered and solved. And the value of us really equating commercialization moves away from us. And that's exactly where we are currently, where we are saying that instead of us giving 100% expense augmentation to an organization who is going ahead and acquiring smaller setups, which actually solves the problem, can we really be solving their problems of cash flow while giving them the money, but also participating in their growth process around it. Sanjeev, you have consistently over years, wherever you have been a proponent of instead of building categories, but in case there are organizations which can be acquired and create a category itself and grow, what has been your strategy on category acquisitions of smaller companies rather than just creating a category itself? I know it's been a mix, but when you acquired small category firms to build a larger story, what has been your perspective of building that? Is it only people, it is business, collaboration, or something else?
So I think across categories, as Ian said, tech is very much you acquire skill, you acquire speed, you acquire IP. Let's take the current operation where we are actually building out a air logistics business from Asia, and yes, to grow organically will not just be enough. We need to be in the US, and we need to be in Europe, and we need to be in South America. We'll have to acquire companies there for geographical growth, and if I need to get into the drone delivery business, then I will get into drones delivery by acquiring drone capability wherever it exists. So therefore I can give you several examples across various verticals of logistics where I don't have current skills, but I would like to build that out as an enabler business. Just to get into the complexities of the business of air forwarding, you need free trade zones. Now, that's really not my skill of real estate and managing warehouses, but I would require a company which can do that for me and, help me in enabling my air logistics business. So I think in today's world, other categories are fast following tech because you are actually reaching a place where you can go global easily. You believe that from India today. 5 years ago, I never thought you could build an air logistics business out of India. Today, frankly, yeah, of course we can build it. It's pretty simple because that's where all the production in India and Southeast Asia is where all the production is, and in Europe and USA is where all the consumption is. So it's a pretty simple hypothesis. You just transport material from Asia into Europe and USA, and whatever you need to do to make it simpler, more convenient for your customers, including cold chain, including sensors, including IT, including AI, buy or acquire.
Yeah. So between that, Sanjeev, when you look at buy and acquire, when you look at organically developing capability, is that a difficult call to take as a leader, or acquisition falls into a much easier perspective, keeping in mind that people believe that organically developing something internally is far cheaper than acquiring something, at least the short term?
Yeah, but you're not building cheap. Your objective is not to be a cheap guy. I mean, I'm sorry to put it that way. Your objective is to build a world-class organization, and you want to do it quickly because otherwise somebody else will beat you to it. So therefore, whatever skill you don't have or whatever, geography you don't have, it's a very simple decision: acquire. After checking out the chemistry between, whom you're acquiring, after checking out all that stuff. And just move forward. They've out of 10, I think 3 of them will fail also, like in anything, but that should not take away. I think the normal old tendency, I'll build on my own. You don't have that luxury of time in today's world at all. That's
When you have looked at post-acquisition integrations within organizations or technology, where have been areas where you thought that in case you miss that, the potential ability to build an organization is at risk?
Yeah, I mean, I was involved in many acquisitions, not directly doing it at Apple, but certainly in Motorola. I was active part of the M&A team, and then obviously in my own company, Scream, we just acquired a company very recently called Gamma. That was an SSP, and integration was key because it's a key component in our ad tech stack. So, you know, at the end of the day, integration really comes down to people. And what we do, and our philosophy, and this is actually a philosophy at Dell and a philosophy of Motorola, is we actually do the integration during due diligence. So we actually spend 3 months, but the integration is done. The tech integration is done, the coding is done, the contracts are done, everybody's on board, and the day we close, everybody's off to the races, and everybody's gold. They're paid appropriately. They know what's going to happen. They know where they sit in the organization, and they're brought, you know, around the table quickly. And that's, and by the way, the company, the Gamma, the company I bought, I only met one person in the team because of COVID. It's a tech company based in Vietnam. I've never met 85% of the employees. So we did it over Zoom. And by the way, Singapore was in lockdown, so the principal in Singapore, we weren't allowed to meet. We actually had to write the contract on a park bench at the Botanic Gardens because we couldn't go indoors. So literally, we signed a multi-million-dollar contract on a park bench, separated by 2 meters and masks in the Botanic Gardens. So I mean, it's, you know, it's this COVID world that's making us do crazy things. But so far, fingers crossed, 6 months in, you know, it's a great integration. And, you know, look, integrations do fail to deliver value. So from a tech perspective, it's a little bit easier if you know the tech, because you're bolting the tech in, you've done the due diligence, you know it's going to work. When you press the button, it works. It's the people associated with the company coming in, and of course, in my own company, to make sure everybody's aligned and there's no issues, right? Because the issues will come from the people, right? Feeling left out, not part of it, not gold, you know, not on the journey, as the saying in America is, right? In Microsoft and Motorola and Dell, it's like everybody has to be on the bus, right? As opposed to being thrown under the bus.
So another question which came up, another question which comes up, augmented towards while building, while acquisition, while M&A post integration, what has been your choice identifying the leader of the company that you have acquired to be, in your eye, to be someone who is still on the bus, as you said, or is a partial bus ride, or someone who potentially is not ready for the vision? Because often the vision of the startup leader may not fit into the size and the scale of what you are looking at or what Sanjeev is looking at. That person may be just a $50 million guy. He may not look at $1 billion business, keeping in mind leaders are very different around it. So Sanjeev, how do you look at identifying the leader of the company you have acquired, and how long do you think, or is it a continuous journey for you?
I think with people, it's always a continuous journey because people evolve. Okay, so you can't judge people by, you know, this guy was like this 3 years ago, or, you know, this guy is like this today. You know, for me, it's fairly soft issues. Is my chemistry, you know, my chemistry with that guy now. Chemistry has got a lot of elements. So, you know, do we gel together? Can we chat about things together? Can we argue about things together, and, you know, bat it back and forth, and, you know, sometimes disagree. Sometimes that guy can tell me to buzz off, saying, you know, I don't agree with you. So you know, does he have the ability to do that? I also look for dreamers. You know, I like dreamers who can think big. You know, backed, of course, by some backed with, you know, solid execution. But there are, you know, I mean, one's very auditor like Scottish boss used to tell me, there are, you know, effective managers and there are smart managers. You know, so you find a combination of those two to be a very rare commodity. So you look for a smart and effective manager. Okay, you can be an effective manager, but you can be fairly dumb. Or you can be a very smart manager, but you may not be a very
able to
effective.
execute.
Yeah. So I think that's what I look for. Those are very soft issues, what you look for in leaders. So that's what I would put it down. And in my view, in today's world, it's all about EQ. And I say it, I'm a guy who most people would accuse of having very little EQ, but at least the people around you should have a very high EQ. They should be empathetic. Empathy is a big game to get people working for you. People don't work just for money. They work for
environment.
If they like you and they feel that you're their buddy, and it's just not drinking beer together. They should like you as a professional. So I think empathy is a very big game. If the guy is not an empathetic guy, I would shy away from a guy. That's my
yeah. Ian?
Yeah, absolutely. They're really incredibly valid points. We have a particular approach, and our approach is this: as an AI company, our forward multiples as a private company are more than 12. Right? The companies that I'm looking at 4 before Christmas that I will acquire, is that these companies are at multiples of 1 or 2. As soon as we put the AI into the business, the valuation goes up 10x overnight. We approach people with the kind of this very simple proposition, is that it's 100% subsidiary of Scream. You stay in control. We bring the tech in. We support you. And by the way, at an exit, let's say in 12 months time or 15 months time, in the private markets, we're 12x. In the public markets, there's a bump to about 17 to 25x valuation. So if you guys want to get on the bus, and it's always an earn-out, right? That we do. It'll be a small down payment. It'll be a stock swap. Very rarely do we include cash, but we put cash in the company, right? We'll fund it, we'll grow it. And by the way, it's still your business, right? You're a wholly held subsidiary of Scream. You're going to get all the goodness from Scream plus the backing of a big company, and we're literally going to go to the public markets together. So even before we have a term sheet, we've already agreed that, right? 100%. And everybody in the company who are shareholders have to agree. And then we get to term sheet, then we agree the term sheet, and then during term sheet we do the integration. And then on close, it's within Scream as a wholly owned company. So that's our particular, this is what we're doing in the AI world of buying companies that are 1 or 2x, and then showing incredible value to the owners. And of course, they're going to generate revenue, which becomes part of Scream. And then it becomes a very kind of accretive value-added deal. And look, I haven't met many companies that don't want to do this. I've met a few, but that's great, no problem. You want to stay in control? Absolutely fantastic. The issue that I do have is I'm trying to acquire some companies who are much larger than Scream, by a multiple of 10 to 100x bigger than Scream in a revenue perspective, where we'll be able to turn the profitability around overnight. Now, this is where I'm having difficulties, right? This tiny little company, this random dude called Ian from Singapore is, want to come in and to acquire the company because it gives us massive market access. And by implementing our tech, we double your margins. So that is hard. It's going to take a while for these guys to, get on board. It may not happen. We'll give it a chance and we'll see if it works.
Do you think building the future, what we started discussing with, revolves around integrating approaches which you need to also sell to the other individual, which they believe is larger than just valuation? Because valuation today is an undying conversation, and it consistently builds in the ability to top line. But the purpose stays somewhere within. Just like what Sanjeev said, that the purpose of addressing challenges to reconnect the ability of where things are being manufactured or things are being consumed to things where you need things need to be addressed. So the hypothesis is much simpler. The execution, obviously, Sanjeev is making it simpler. But same for you, the objective of identifying startups, obviously with one-on-one valuation, but the challenge is when you are excited about acquiring something which has a 100x valuation, but consistently driving that as a momentum. Do you think all of us should move ahead from the construct of only looking at organizations from a balance sheet or a valuation standpoint, which external third-party people drive? Because the purpose of what the family offices, which we work very closely with, often is bifurcated clearly into two halves. One part of the money which the bankers operate, but the other part of the money which is clearly operated on the side of making sure that the purpose of the entrepreneurial spirit doesn't die. And that kind of consumes the entire purpose of why we do what we do, so that the idea is not only about partnering through state-led commercialization or through potential go-to-market, but where can we really stream out opportunities that we are doing? So, Ian, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so absolutely. And this is why we have the approach where we keep the companies as 100% owned subsidiary, or we could buy 51% or 80%. So the company exists as it is, because founders, we're all founders, right? So, we're kind of, dreaming, right? The end of the day, every founder wants to do something pretty interesting, right? So that they're on a mission to do something pretty interesting. Yeah. So we decided that the companies that we acquire, the leaders of those companies we have to have a shared vision. Yeah, check, get it. If this works, there's going to be, a really nice payday. But more importantly, what we're doing is we're enabling the founder's vision, enabling her or him to get there a lot quicker. And the challenge that we have is, as a tech company, we have to get to $1 billion valuation as fast as possible, purely on commercial grounds, because we can't stand alone and access, we have to get to $1 billion. We have to list, because we need to access the markets where we can actually acquire and kind of loan money at the preferential rates you get on the public markets. You cannot exist as a standalone tech company if you're less than $1 billion and not growing. You'll either decline, or somebody buys you.
Yeah, that's what we were taught in college, shareholder value. I think the shareholder value is going out from external value proposition, and you know that better than anyone else. I'm just summarizing the conversation, and I think we speak about people, technology, integration, specifics. One last question, Sanjeev. What's one word that comes to your mind when you talk about building an organization for future? What is one thing that comes to your mind?
I don't know. Customer. I mean, you have to be really delivering to the customer. That's what will build a future long-lasting organization.
Yeah. I remember old stories of yours where you would say that the customer and the distributor teaches us the augmentation of where you need to deliver and deliberate on. Ian, the same question for you.
Yeah, look, as a tech company, resilience. Every day there's a crisis somewhere.
Super. Thank you so much for spending some time with me, and really appreciate you coming up together. The family office in Middle East all gives regards, and really hope to see you guys soon and talk offline. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.